Hello everyone, welcome to my history of the U.S.'s 35th president, the infamous John F. Kennedy, or JFK. Today marks an important day in his life, so without further ado, here is my biography on the man, the myth, the legend, JFK. On this day, May 29th, 104 years ago in 1917, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, or John F. Kennedy, or JFK, was born to Joseph Kennedy, a politician, and Rose F. Kennedy, who was as Catholic as JoJo Siwa is annoying, which is very. Together, he, his parents, and his 8 siblings, what is this, Full House, lived at this modest house at 83 Beale Street in Brookline, Massachusetts. Here, he would remain for several years. When JFK was 10 years old, in 1927, he moved west to Riverdale, New York. Here, he and his family would avoid getting hit hard by the Great Depression of the 1930s. In autumn of 1931, JFK enrolled at Charlotte Rosemary Hall, a prep college boarding school. After, in autumn of 1935, Kennedy entered Princeton University, where he and his roommates loved to screw around, but left after his intestines were essentially exploding. After dealing with his intestine issues, he decided that Princeton wasn't hard enough, and so he went to the nation's oldest and arguably most prestigious university, Harvard University. In his time here from 1936 to 1940, his father, Joseph Kennedy, would become ambassador to the UK, but would later be recalled because the person who was working for FDR was pissed off because he was acting Anglophobic to the UK despite being the ambassador to it. In 1940, JFK graduated Harvard with a Bachelor in Arts of Government. However, he turned his eyes away from the book into the sea. In summer of 1941, JFK enlisted in the U.S. Navy because, America. By 1943, in World War II, he was the commander of a boat known as the PT-109, which had torpedoes. During his time commanding this ship, on August 2nd, 1943, a Japanese destroyer rammed his ship, causing it to start sinking. This caused a panic, almost a pandemic, which he ended through his calm demeanor, which would earn him a Purple Heart. In 1945, the Navy discharged him because he was getting a lot of back pain. After leaving the U.S. Navy, JFK looked east to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And so, in November of 1946, JFK was elected the Democratic representative for Massachusetts' 11th Congressional District. JFK would serve 3 more terms of representative until 1952. During this time, he was diagnosed with Addison's disease, which he tried to hide but couldn't. In 1953, JFK became a senator for Massachusetts, which would be a position he held through 1960. During this time, on September 12, 1953, JFK married his first wife, Jacqueline Bouvier, or Jackie Kennedy. She was his only wife. Jackie later gave birth to their first child, Caroline Kennedy, the only surviving direct Kennedy alive today. After leaving the Senate in 1960, JFK was about to aim for what is called the highest office in the land, the office of President of the United States. In November of 1960, JFK said this to Richard Nixon after he made some attacks on him.
I really don't need Mr. Nixon to tell me about what my responsibilities are as a citizen.
This probably caused Nixon's water to go down his gate. I actually tried this time. Anyways, on November 8th in 1960, Nixon got 34 million votes, or 49.55% of the votes. JFK got 34,220,000, or 112,000 more votes, allowing for JFK to become the 35th president of the United States. On January 20th, 1961, JFK was inaugurated at the Capitol and gave his now famous inaugural address. Here are 2 highlights.
John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
That you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of your ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
We observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom, symbolizing an end as well as a beginning, signifying renewal as well as change. For I have sworn before you and Almighty God the same solemn oath our forebears prescribed nearly a century and 3/4 ago.
After moving into the White House, Jacqueline Kennedy gave birth to her and JFK's second child, JFK Jr., on November 25th, 1961. As time would pass, Kennedy would take on the challenges that would follow. After getting settled into the presidency, Kennedy and his family would travel to Europe to visit presidents, monarchs, and prime ministers, and eventually, for the main purpose, meeting with the leader of the Soviet Union. On May 30th, 1961, JFK met the famed French president and war hero Charles de Gaulle, who essentially told him, "The leader of the Soviet Union, the old fart Nikita Khrushchev, is kind of a grumpy guy. Be careful of him." On June 4th, 1961, the day came. Kennedy met with Nikita Khrushchev, chairman of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, at the Austrian capital of Vienna in what became known as the Vienna Summit. In it, Khrushchev and Kennedy talked about stuff like East Germany and Cuba. Kennedy then pulled the plug on the summit after Khrushchev allegedly began bullying him. To be fair for both of them, he does kind of look like the guy who would be in the get off my lawn sort. However, not aware to Kennedy was the fact that the president of Cuba was getting very unpopular. This led to a revolution against him, leading to an event which would see the most dangerous day in human history. In April of 1961, JFK ordered the U.S. to invade Cuba after communist revolutionaries Fidel Castro and Che Guevara overthrew the U.S.'s backed dictator Fulgencio Batista, whose hat is bigger than his head. This invasion became known as the Bay of Pigs invasion and was a militaristic disaster for the U.S. The Cuban Army, or the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Cuba, destroyed the U.S. Army, leading to the retreat, obviously pissing off Kennedy. On October 16, 1962, the CIA presented this photo to Kennedy, which was taken by two U-2 spy planes, showing the Soviets building missiles for the Cubans, which could strike anywhere in mainland America. This caused Kennedy to order the U.S. to deny entry to any ships to Cuba, which infuriated the Soviets. And so, on October 27, 1962, the world almost ended. A Soviet submarine was hit by a U.S. depth charge, which is like a little underwater bomb that's not supposed to sink you, but to tell you to get out of the water. The Soviet crew on this submarine thought it was a real bomb, and so 2 out of 3 of the captains on it gave support in torpedoing the U.S. submarine. If the last one did, then it would be nuclear war. However, the third captain, named Vasily Arkhipov, said no, saving humanity in the closest it ever came to extinction in modern times. Thankfully, the Soviets removed their missiles from Cuba later that day. After Kennedy saw the U.S. enter the Vietnam War, which I conveniently made an entire video on, his popularity plummeted in the American South, also for other reasons. Not like people that ever like a sitting Democrat as president. On June 26, 1963, JFK went to the German capital of Berlin, at least West Berlin, to give his now infamous and most popular speech, Ich bin ein Berliner, or I am a Berliner. It was basically him condemning communism and the Berlin Wall. Here's the famous part.
Citizens of Berlin, and therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the words, Ich bin ein Berliner.
After JFK went back to the U.S., he then decided, why not go to Texas? I mean, how about I try and bridge the fierce divide between Democrats and Republicans there? And so, he went to Dallas, Texas, one of the largest cities in the state. On November 22nd, 1963, JFK was infamously shot by Lee Harvey Oswald from the school depository building. This was captured in what is now known as the Zapruder film. Here is when it happened. Warning, this video is kind of disturbing. It actually shows Kennedy being shot. If you do not wish to see it, then push L, which will skip forward by like 10 seconds. So yeah, here it is. Kennedy was pronounced dead the same day as his assassination. This devastated his family and shocked the entire world. After Kennedy's death, his VP, LBJ, or Lyndon B. Johnson, became president, and later established the Warren Commission to examine how he died and what killed him. Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't able to go to prison at all as he was murdered, also, this time by Jack Ruby. Kennedy would later be buried at Arlington National Cemetery, and I've been to his grave, so yeah. Even after his untimely end, the effects of JFK and his time as president certainly still remain today. For one, he fixed the American economy, which was currently in a recession in 1962. He also fought for minority population employees to get rights under Executive Order 1092-5, which guaranteed equal treatment to employees of all races, genders, and national origins. So, yeah. He was also kind of neutral on the topic of LGBTQ plus rights, but his successor would support that movement. What a president. And with that was my biography on John F. Kennedy. I hope you enjoyed it. I learned a lot making this, even though I thought I knew everything about him before this. As for what is coming up next, my next video will be on my first exclusive cover of a song. On June 2nd, I will be releasing my cover of the Italian national anthem, Il Canto degli Italiani, or the Song of Italians, for Italian National Day. It might have a vocal part in it too, but I'm not sure about that for now. Thanks for watching.